What's up, guys? It's your boy, Travie Higgs, coming at you live again from my apartment. I did get this sweet new backdrop, though, off Amazon. Anyways, today we are going to talk about how to edit audio in GarageBand. We're going to talk about how to make cuts, use automation, add crossfades. We're going to talk about what plugins are, and then we're going to talk about how to export your audio so you can get it to a listening platform. So, my first question is, why edit? Why don't we just hit record what we need to say, and then put it online for everyone to listen to? Well, sometimes we might need to cut out excess banner, mistakes, long pauses, curse words. Also, we can rearrange parts of our podcast, for instance. Let's say we talked about something really cool at the end of the podcast and we wanted to move that to the front so it attracted more listeners. We're going to talk about how we can do that and edit our audio to where people can't tell we made the edits, because that's the goal. We don't want to cut stuff up and then we can hear pauses and clicks in our audio and it's very obvious that we did some editing there. We want everything to be seamless. We want our transitions to fade in and out clearly. So let's talk about how we do that. So how do we edit our audio in a way that people can't tell that it's been edited? We make cuts and we crossfade the audio. Okay? So, for instance, here, this is my friend Josh's podcast that we had on the last episode. I have a little intro song here we'll talk about later, but this is the bulk of the podcast. All right, so for example, let's say we wanted to make a cut. Let's make this cut here, okay? So, we have our track selected. We can right-click and we can select split at playhead, or we can hit Command-T. So once I've done that, I'll deselect it, and you see we now have two separate audio tracks here, okay? If you hover on the top one here, actually you see when you hover, these two things pop up on both of these. The bottom one will drag and cut everything to the left. I'm just hitting undo to undo this. Same thing here. But also, if you hover over the top here, you can edit where you have split the audio. It's a pretty cool feature. So if you want to get real intricate with your cuts, this is a good way to do it. Okay, so we are going to cut out this little part here, and then we want to begin again. Where is it? Right here. Okay, so we're going to cut. I'm going to hit Command-T, make that cut. So now I have this separate audio track. I can either just Command-X to cut, or I can hit the delete key, whatever I want to do. So I have that. Now we have this guy. We're going to slide it down to there. Okay, now, so if we play this, we might hear a pop in the audio, or might be able to tell where that pause is. Let's listen.
3 years. These particular podcasts will be in...
Yeah, you can hear something going on there. Hear that? So we want to clean that up, and we're going to do that using a crossfade. What you're going to do is take this second section of audio that you want to blend in with the first section, and we're going to create a duplicate track here, okay? We're going to right click, and we're going to do new track with duplicate settings, or we can do Command-D. Okay, so we're going to click it. Now we have the exact same track at the same volume level. Any EQ or compression we've done to this one will also go to this track. So we're just going to drag it down. All right, we can now drag this over and put the beginning of the next section where we want it. So let's find a good spot.
3 years. These particular podcasts will be in...
That's pretty clean. Now let's talk about the crossfade. So on your keyboard, I want you to hit A. Boom. You'll see everything kind of change. This is called automation mode, okay? A toggles it on and off. You'll see I already have some automation that I wrote for this little intro song. What automation is you're automating your volume going up or down. And with a crossfade, you'll just edit some points with your volume going up and down. So how we do that with this is you're going to click, and you'll see I click once, it made the line yellow. That activates the automation. Let's click one more time and make an automation point. See that little circle there? All right. We're going to click where we want the audio to fade out, and then we're going to drag that down, and you'll see the audio fades out. Here, I'll do it up here actually, just so, for a better example. So I'm going to click here and turn it down. We'll do a nice long crossfade.
Read to my beautiful wife, Alicia.
Okay. So if we just want to blend these two together, a pro tip that I have is crossfading the silence. When toggle out of automation mode, I can get a little bit more silence by hovering over the edges of these guys if I want to, just to make that exactly how I want it to. So let's see what we got now.
These particular podcasts will be
smoothing it out a little more.
And
then I want to bring them a little closer. See what that
3
sounds
years.
like.
These particular podcasts will.
There we go. That's a clean crossfade. So if you want to cut something out or make an edit to something, you're going to cut it out, push everything together, fade one out, fade one back in. Make sense? Okay, let's talk about another time where we might want to use some automation. Here, this is a good example on this. All right, here we are right at the end. I'm going to zoom in. Let's listen to it.
See you on the 21st.
Okay, so you can hear when he got done recording, he hit the space bar to stop. We obviously don't want that in the podcast, so let's cut it out.
We will see you on the 21st.
Two different ways we could do that. Here's the pop you can see when he hits. Just that. So we could go right here, cut it out like that.
21st.
Gone. Or we could use automation if you wanted to. I'm going to hit A, make a point here, slide it down a little bit, pull it down.
First.
Nice and clean. I prefer using volume automation for that stuff. I like that better than the hard cut. Okay, now that we have our podcast recorded, we have it edited, it's cut and glued together the way that we want it, let's talk about how to make it actually sound good. We use things called plugins, which I talked about in the last video, to fine-tune what we're hearing. So let's add a plugin to Josh's voice over here. You can do this on any of your tracks. I'm just going to use this short piece of audio as an example. If we double-click, pops up the mixer. We're on the track, not the master. Okay, we want to edit the plugin on this track. We're going to go down here where it says plugins. You'll see we have a noise gate, a de-esser, an EQ compressor, another compressor, and a stereo spread. Let's listen to this and see what it sounds like. I'm going to solo it.
You're listening to the Creative Capital Podcast. If you're dying to learn about how you can create wealth through real estate investing, then you've come to the right place. Join in every week as we go over the ins and outs of real estate investing and learn how you too can become financial.
Cool. All right, so that's what it sounds like. I've kind of already tweaked this, but I'm going to start editing some of these plugins just for you to see what they do. For instance, the channel EQ. All right, if you turn the analyzer on, you can actually see the frequencies coming from his voice.
You're listening to the Creative Capital Podcast. If you're dying to learn about how you can create wealth through real estate investing, then you've come to the right place.
So often when I'm EQing things, I use what we call subtractive EQ, and you're pulling the things away that you don't want to hear so that you can hear the things you do want to hear. So typically in a voice, you'll want to pull from the low mid range, and that cleans up some of the muddiness that happens in that 2 to 500K range. 2 to 500 range, sorry.
You're
listen to this now.
listening to the Creative Capital Podcast.
There
if you're
we
dying
go.
to learn about how you can create wealth through real estate investing, then you've come to the right place.
I want to add some clarity
Join
in the middle.
every week as we go over the ins and outs of real estate investing and learn how you too can become financially free.
Toggle it on and off.
You're listening to the Creative Capital Podcast.
There's the EQ
If you're
on.
dying to learn about how you can create wealth through real estate investing, then you've come to the right place.
You can see how just some simple EQ can really clear up a vocal. Pro tips for me are pulling from this low mid and adding a little bit in this mid-high range here, so to say. This is where the clarity in your voice really comes out, and this is where the muddiness is. So we're going to pull here and push a little bit here to compensate for it. Okay, so that's EQ. Let's talk about compression. What is a compressor? So a good way to think about compression is a volume knob. Okay, so it's going to turn it up when things are soft, and it's going to turn down when things are really loud. Okay, it's kind of like volume automation, but it's automatic. You can see how that can be useful for a voice. I'm going to pull the compression off of here, let you listen to it.
You're listening to the Creative Capital Podcast. If you're dying to learn about how you can create wealth through real estate investing, then you've come to the right place.
See it hitting the
Join in
compressor
every
here.
week as we go over the ins and outs of real estate investing.
It can be easy to over compress things, and that puts everything at the same volume, and your voice can start to sound kind of squashed. So I usually like to start at the bottom and blend up from there until I find something that works.
You're listening to the Creative Capital Podcast. If you're dying to learn about how you can create wealth through real estate investing, then you've come to the right place. Join in every week as we go over the ins and outs.
Cool. So that's compression for you. Play around with some good EQ settings on your voice. You can save a preset or a template for your voice so it's always the same every time you load it up. Same thing with your compressor. The de-esser kind of takes the S's and the P's. They're called plosives. It tends to take a lot of that out. It's very useful for podcasts and voiceovers. Anyways, there are lots of presets for recording your voice here. So let's say you want to make a new track. Let's do an audio track. Click off that. All right, here's our new track we just made for voice. You can select narration, fuzz, dance, and all these plug-in settings are changing as you're going through these different kinds of settings. You see the knobs moving as I'm clicking them. Anyway, so you can play around with those, find something that works for you, and then you can tweak those presets from there. That's normally what I do for setting things up quickly. Real quick, I'm going to let you see some volume automation that I did here. Normally you can rely on a compressor to pull really loud parts down, but it doesn't always work out the best way, and you will need to use some automation. For example, here, this was a really loud spot. I just pulled it down really quick. It sounds like this.
Creative Capital Podcast.
Just that podcast sounded really loud. Here, I'll turn off. Can I turn off automation? Yeah, right here. Let you hear it without it.
Listening to the Creative Capital Podcast.
See how it sticks out so
Listening
loud?
to the Creative Capital Podcast.
That was too much for me, even with the compressor. So I added this little automation.
Creative Capital Podcast.
Pulls it down, cleans it up. All right, so let's say you've got everything done and you're ready to export. Maybe send it to your friends, get some opinions on it. I'll show you a quick way to do that. So we're going to hit Command A to select all. We will hit Enter to go back to the front. Usually you want to start your playhead at the beginning when you're exporting. So again, we select it all, hit Enter to go to the beginning. We're going to hit Share, Exports on a disk. Here you can rename it and decide where you want to save it. You can also select different types of files here. We'll discuss in the next video what types of files are best for certain situations. But if you're just sending something to your friends, an MP3 will be fine. You can export it right there, and it'll go through its little process, and you'll be able to send a file to someone. All right, and you can see mine here. It's on my downloads. Cool. All right, so in the next video, we're going to talk about how you can create your own podcast intro for free in GarageBand. We will use Apple Loops. We'll talk about GarageBand's drummer, how to record a voiceover, how to choose the right voice preset that's right for your voice, and then how to export your audio. Do you need a WAV file? Do you need an MP3? We're going to talk about the benefits of both. So if that's something that interests you, tune in next time. It's coming at you soon.